Peace, this is Star with the Star Blooms. Thank you to Archangel Gabriel for divine judgment, who is here with me, aligning me to all race of truth and clarity. Thank you to Archangel Michael for being here in race of protection, covering, cloaking, shielding, and honoring me. Yeah, I'm not going to say that out loud. Thank you. Thank you to my seraphim. Thank you to my benevolent, aligned, assigned ancestors who are here with me, guiding me in my highest divine light, on my highest vibrational timeline. Thank you to the Most High for channeling through me a race of truth, clear spirit, clarity that is leading us to a race of prosperity. Yes, in the divine. As we align, abracadabra, make it so, I say Asheo. So I just recorded this, and right before I finished it, I basically did something weird. So we're gonna try it one more time. I had pulled out 3 cards, and the 3 cards that I pulled out were from my healing deck of the inner child. And these cards are really special because they basically give you one word, but in the one word, there's enveloped an image that I believe unfolds over and over again, especially with different dynamics. And this basically tells a story of the negative and the positive charge. Oh, I wasn't going to say it this way. God is so good. 1221. God is so good, y'all. Listen. Oh my goodness. Okay. And y'all have to understand that we be in representation of many gods because there's so much that's actually moving and flowing through us. And as I was basically being spoken to this morning with my spirit team, with my light team, they were basically not necessarily just encouraging me, but anchoring me in rays of truth and recognition that all rates of nature basically have their own domain, and there's their own governing fluid, their own governing law. And because of that, there's basically designated so-called mentees that basically are over these rates. And I was speaking about like the race of Sophia, and how even in The Color Purple, how they named Oprah Winfrey Sophia, and she basically was, I would say, almost castrated to a certain point because of how she was, abolished from her children, taken and put into a predicament to where she was in prison, forced to, play aid and beaten and so on and so forth. And how they always want to rewrite the story of Sophia, the divine feminine energy, and how they basically wanted to be perceived in this kind of downcast state that isn't accurate. And in these cards, it came out the same way. So a second ago, I wanted it to be like just surface layer, but now spirit is giving me way more, and I'm so grateful. Representation is so necessary, and recognition is even higher when you have full understanding and clarity of what it is that you're seeing and perceiving, right? So the first deck that I basically got, and I'm saying deck because I did a line of 8 for each coordinates, right? Good God, 888. And I recognized that with the first one, it was soul. And it's crazy because soul is internal as well. However, they're basically showing me that it's a different rate of understanding, because the negative charge, which would be the internal charge, which is the dark divine feminine, right? The positive charge, which would be the external charge, which is the aloof masculine, divine masculine. These words that I'm using, I'm not necessarily sure why spirit is giving me these words exactly, but I understand what is coming through. With the soul, which was the first card that came out, there are so many rays on the external that we're being called to acknowledge. However, because we've been in such a patriotic space, an active space that allows us to be in certain race of confusion, we show up entitled to believing that we know what's best and that we've basically set off achieving certain things. But when you start a soul journey and you're actually going towards race of ascension, you have to be in recognition of how many things that you've allowed to attach to you. And in order for you to become this gentle space with yourself, you have to allow yourself to get beyond the rates of hate and recognize the layers of karmic energy that you've shown up in. And a lot of the times you won't gain access to soul fully until you clear this rate. However, on the other end, when you allow yourself to be in your shadow, which was the second card that came out on the quadrant, second part of the quadrant, which would be like the divine mother, that's going to be like Cancer. It's so dope how spirit does this. Oh my goodness. The three energies that would be a representation is, the first set would basically be Aries, Taurus, Gemini. The second set would be, excuse me, thank you for the confirmation, but I know it's necessary, y'all. The second set would be Cancer, Leo, Virgo, right? With this one, what showed up is how the occupation for the divine feminine has been love, are receiving these rays of love offer. And due to the attention that she gets and how she's able to sit in the shadow, she's receiving these rays of death magic from the community, who have basically been placing love spells in recognition that this is the desire of the divine feminine, the nurtured state. Being at this rate of being able to be aligned to that energy that is balancing for us is love, right? And to be able to give it. However, she's ascended at a certain rate, so now she's at this rate of being unbothered, and aligns her to her abundance, which the community, which could be anything, y'all, has become obsessed. And if you recognize these three pillars, the Cancer, the Leo, the Virgo, excuse me, the Cancer is basically these deep emotions that come in like waves crashing against the tides. Going back out is so aloof, right? It's almost like it's a flip, and spirit is recognizing that, all right? That in order for the divine feminine to be able to be in full representation of herself, it isn't so much so that she needs to just be active. She needs to be able to go within the deep depths of basically being able to recognize, like Sophia, how she's made decisions based off of her desire to go towards the things that she loves, how she's allowed love and not being patient, not allowing the magnetism. Sophia, if you read the Nag Hammadi, she acted off impulse because she was tired of waiting, 811 for her partner. She wasn't willing to be at this rate, and due to that, she created and she cultivated something that couldn't be undone, right? And it was necessary because it erected this I was going to say this chain of command that's just so happens to be the archons, that just so happens to be the overseers, but it's this influx of energy that everybody has to fight through. And it becomes this rate of obsession because it goes back to the soul. And regardless, if you're not willing to be a recognition of the shadow, you'll continue to get to these rates of animosity, wanting to manifest certain rates of release, and you'll find yourself constantly being concerned, having people show up as if they're concerned, wanting you to feel like you could trust them, yet they're operating in space of lust because they recognize that you taking yourself out of this rate of confliction, wanting to allow certain things that are outside of you to give you the keys and access to what's internal. It becomes this unlimited space of reward. So spirit is basically saying, allow yourself to recognize that when dealing with the balancing of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, sometimes it requires you to flip the negative charge to a positive and a positive to a negative in order for them to have the infinite rate of success. And allowing yourself to have these access allows you to be in recognition of what has already been present and not trying to move away from what it is that's being brought to you, because there's a certain rate of clarity that comes when you get to see the whole board.